Welcome everyone. Now calling this meeting to order. Please stand with us. Before we pray, Alderman Gallagher is going to lead us in prayer. Before we do that, let's have a moment of silence for Mr. Gay Hudson. Let's honor the life of Mr. Gay Hudson. It's Alderman Flores' father-in-law. Mr. Hudson is a longtime resident of Southaven. He was one of the insurance pioneers in our city. He had one of the first insurance agencies in the city, lived in the city many years, very civic minded, and he passed away today. So if we can just honor Mr. Hudson with a moment of silence.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to you now and we ask you to send your Holy Spirit to the Flores family, Lord. Lord, we pray that you would just touch them and touch Irma, Lord, and bless them during this difficult time, Lord. We also ask that you would be with us tonight as we go through city business, Lord. We ask for your wisdom, and we thank you for everything that you've done for us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda this evening is the approval of minutes for the August 20th meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 20th, 2019 with any additions, deletions, or corrections. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is approval of the House of Grace funding.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the funding for the House of Grace as presented by the sub-county supervisors a couple meetings ago. I'll second that.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. I'll start the discussion just quickly. They amended that. The counties or municipalities that refuse to participate in the funding, they just made it to where they won't receive the services. So it will be unanimous funding from those entities that the House of Grace is providing service. All they did is amended that. As far as the amount, they adjusted. The amount is still the same. They just took those out that are not participating. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is a summary change order for Fire Services Phase 2. Mr. Dan Cordell.
Mayor, Board, as the mayor indicated, this is the fire service extension phase 2 that's been going on around the Malone Road area. I'm requesting y'all's approval on a summary by line item deductive change order in the amount of $61,027.24 to adjust all the units by what's been installed.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Gallagher, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion? And just to update the audience real quickly, this phase is one of 6 phases to extend larger water lines to areas that the city has annexed in the past to give them the same fire protection as everyone else in the city. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a resolution for the fiscal year 2020 budget and millage rate.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the resolution fixing the ad valorem tax levy on real and personal property for taxes and establishing the budget appropriations and expenditures for fiscal year 2019-2020 for the City of Southaven as presented on this date.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Wheeler. I'll start the discussion again just to summarize that our budget, all the things that we're going to accomplish with this budget, again, is with no property tax increase. So there has not been a property tax increase since this administration and this board has been here. We've been able to accomplish a lot financially by making good financial decisions and promoting economic growth in our city, which has improved our sales tax revenue, which has enabled us to maintain a steady property millage rate. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is the acceptance of a donation to our Parks Department. Mr. Nick Manley.
Yeah, this is and the Parks Department has been approached by a family seeking to make a donation to the department in memory of the lady's husband, and such not just authorization to accept that donation for Little League Baseball, and authorize the accounting and department to make all necessary, or to meet all necessary requirements for the donation.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Wheeler, second by Alderman Gallagher. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure what the donation is, but are we going to try to memorialize the donation at the parks level?
Well,
Go ahead.
we're waiting for information from the family to find out if that's what they wish or not. We're not. They're asking for in lieu of flowers to have donations to the city, but I know Parks and Rec reached out to them and have not heard back regarding that issue yet.
Basically, the gentleman that passed has children that have benefited from youth baseball in the city and understands the value of that. So, and like as Nick said, in lieu of flowers, he wanted the money, to go to youth baseball to help other kids to enjoy the same privileges that his kids did. So I thought it was very, very honorable. And so at this point, we don't know how much, but when we get that money, we'll make sure that we honor his wishes and make sure that the money does go to baseball. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
That motion carries.
And Mayor, we also have another donation that came in late on Friday, if I can present that one.
Sure.
Southern Thunder is hosting a donation or an event this weekend, and they want the proceeds to go to the Southaven Police Department Motor Unit Division. And so authorization for them to accept that donation for the county department to take all requirements to accept and receive and disperse the donations.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion? We appreciate that as well. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is a resolution for the Southaven Police Department surplus of property.
Yeah, this will allow for the surplus of firearms pursuant to Mississippi Code 172525. It'll be done via the auction process, and that'll require the individuals or the companies who bid on to be certified dealers as required by state code and state law.
This
It's
is one motion? Is it
Yeah,
two?
there's two resolutions, but both resolutions can be by the same person and second on both.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the resolution, Mayor Board of Aldermen, City of Southaven declaring surplus property in the police department as presented.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion?
And your motion would include authorization for seized and surplus.
Correct. Exactly what I said.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is surplus of miscellaneous items for scrap value from our utilities department.
And there's just a couple of items in the utility department needs to scrap or surplus for scrap value, which would be less than $1,000 pursuant to Mississippi Code 172525.
So moved.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, John.
We have a motion by Alderman Wheeler, second by Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is a task order for a special engineering contract. Mr. Dan Cordell again. This is, I'll let him tell you the details, but basically, I've asked Dan to put this on the agenda to do some research. When we extended Rasco Road from Sweeney to Tullahoma, which now connects Rasco all the way from Getwell in the east to Highway 51 on the west, we've had an enormous amount of additional traffic on that road. The area at Rasco and Tullahoma, in a matter of weeks, has become much more dangerous. And we've been watching this for about 2 years, but has changed significantly. We've had, I think, 12 wrecks, does that sound right? Yeah. Chief gave me that information this morning, but we've had 12 wrecks there, and you can just, if you go there, you can tell it's just enormously different than it was, like I said, weeks or months ago. So anyway, just for safety, that's what this is about. I've asked Dan to go and do some work to see exactly what we need. We don't want to go and put a four-way stop sign if we've already, kind of transcended that need into a traffic signal. So before we do anything, I want to make sure we do it right and do it safely. So that's what this is about. Mr. Danny Cordell.
There's not much to add to that.
Well, you're gonna talk the details, the technical details that I can't handle.
Basically, we did some peak hour counts, and the numbers were kind of surprising to us. So we're asking for y'all's approval to go out and get 24-hour traffic counts and a traffic engineer to review the information before we finalize the data. Because initially we were thinking a four-way stop, and I really do believe there's probably a need for a signal at that intersection. So I'm asking for y'all's approval for us to spend not to exceed $2,200 on some resources to find that out.
I'll make that motion. Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Kelly, second by Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion?
I came that way to the meeting today, and I thought the exact same thing. I said, something has to be done here. It was crazy. Yeah.
Especially like at this time of day.
It's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's be careful.
I go through early in the morning, about 6 o'clock, and never have a problem.
Well,
It's fine.
go through about 8 o'clock, see what you do.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Mayor, attached to that was our engineering contract. I don't know if it made it or not, but it did. Okay, it's page 2. This is an extension request for an amendment to the master contract to extend our services for the staffing services for another budget year. And no changes other than just the date. I ask for y'all's approval on that as well.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion?
No more trouble.
No more. Check it with.
You busy enough?
Yes, sir.
I thought so.
Plenty to do.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a resolution for Stormwater Awareness Week.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the resolution of the Southaven Board of Aldermen declaring September 23rd to 27th, 2019 as Stormwater Awareness Week.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion? You mind reading?
What am I reading?
Well, you said we had the resolution.
Yeah, I have the resolution here.
Okay.
It's through the stormwater committee.
Just
Standard
Okay,
resolution.
I think we're good with that. Okay. We do this every year. It's very important to acknowledge we all face serious stormwater challenges, every city, everywhere. Okay, any other discussion about that?
Something you never even thought of until you came there.
No.
Got in the government.
No, definitely understand.
And it's a
Yeah, find myself looking at culverts driving down the road. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda is a resolution to claim private property.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the resolution granting authority to claim private property as presented on this date.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Gallagher. Is there any discussion among the board? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that has a financial interest in any of the properties that would like to speak? Hearing or seeing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is our planning agenda. Ms. Whitney Cook.
Yes, sir. Our first application is a subdivision app for a 1 acre parcel on the north side of Nail Road, just east of Getwell. Basically backs up to the ball fields. At the previous meeting, we did rezone this from agricultural to R20. It still complies with low density residential in the comprehensive plan. The applicant is now wanting to split that lot in half, one having 0.511 acres and one lot having 0.5 acres. Mr. Maxwell explained last time that it is family-owned property from the 1960s. His brother and sister are wanting to both place a lot on these houses on these lots. Again, it was rezoned. It does meet the minimum requirements for subdivision application, and we vote unanimously in favor of it at the Planning Commission.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion that we approve item number 1 on the planning agenda.
Second.
On item 1, we have a motion by Alderman Wheeler, second by Alderman Payne. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Item 2, we have a request for subdivision approval for Cherry Tree South Phase 3B. It's going to be on the west side of Ketwell Road, north of Star Landing. It's 5.73 acres, proposing 19 lots. Per the PUD, you've got the traditional move-up lots for lots 82 through 92, which have a 1,700 square foot minimum. Lots 93 through 100 are considered traditional young family lots with a minimum of 1,600 square feet. This was approved in 2000 under the PUD text, so it is compliant with that. It does continue an existing road called Marion Lane. It does head north though, it heads south, and they proposed that name to be Marion Lane South. And speaking with E911 and Chris Shelton with IT Emergency Communications, we were trying to shy away from the north, south, east, west on street names because it does cause some problems there. So the one comment that we have made with this is that that name needs to be changed. We'll get it approved back through IT and E911, but we'll need to take that name out and replace it with something that doesn't have directional flow to it. They agreed to that, and it was voted unanimously in favor of by the Planning Commission at that point.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve item number 2 on the planning agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
That motion carries on 2.
Item number 3, we have an application request for Silo Square Area 1, Phase 1, Lot 5. This is one of the out parcels on the west side of Getwell Road. It's going to be south of where Future Main Boulevard is going to be. The lot totals 1.735 acres. It does not show direct access to Getwell Road. There is a private drive coming off of Getwell Road just south of this, which will be shared with the lots to the south, where it will be accessed. An additional private drives on the back side so you can enter the lots like we've designed it to be on a rear access road. It does meet the PUD requirements for Silo Square and the bulk regulations set forth in the ordinance, and staff recommended approval. It voted unanimously in favor of by the Planning Commission.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll make this motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Wheeler, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Item number 4 is a subdivision application for the Gardens of Bell Point Phase 3. It's going to be on the north side of Church Road, east of Getwell. This is the last 45 lots in the subdivision. It was approved in a PUD text in 2018. These lots are part of Area C and Area D, one having minimum square footage of 2,000, the other with 2,450 heated square feet. The roads are continuations from existing phases, with the exception of one. We are checking with that road name to make sure it's not repetitive. There's also the 20-foot landscape buffer along the backside where it is adjacent to Bell Point subdivision. We've asked to have a no disturb line there so the existing trees can help buffer that. All of that has been complied with. We reviewed the PUD documents and it is compliant with that along with the bulk regulations. It was brought up at the Planning Commission that there was a roundabout where that tees off and goes to the cove. They chose to take that out and add another lot in there. Planning Commission did not have a problem with removing that roundabout. There is a larger one to the south of there that's kind of like part of the entrance. So they were okay with that removal and they voted unanimously in favor with that condition.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve item number 4 on the planning agenda.
Second.
On item 4, we have a motion by Alderman Wheeler, second by Alderman Gallagher. Is there any discussion?
So when they took out the roundabout,
There's a large one that you see just where the stub out to the south is. You'll see where it kind of starts rounding out. That's the big one that you'll see for the main entrance. There was a smaller roundabout where it goes up to the north and tees right there into that back road.
Yeah.
They had a small one there. I guess the property was selling so well that they chose to get an additional lot out of
understand?
it. Yes.
Any other discussion on 4? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Payne.
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher.
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is our mayor's report. Move through this kind of quickly here. First of all, Thursday at 10 a.m., Thursday, September 5th, this Thursday at 10 a.m., there's going to be a large economic development announcement by Governor Phil Bryant with the Medline, recent Medline announcement, and then this one. These are 2 serious industrial developments that are going to occur in our city. So this is the second one that will be comparable to the Medline announcement. And so the governor will announce that. We'll be on the site. There will be a ceremony for that announcement at 10 o'clock. The site is on the state line. It is the site that's under construction in the state line area near Tullahoma. Recently, I want to thank Alderman Kelly for bringing up something that I've never thought about. Obviously, we've done many things in the city, you know, to make a great first impression for people that want to visit here or want to live here or do business here. With our monument signs, all of our beautification efforts, many things that we've done. But one thing that Alderman Kelly pointed out is that on the interstate, I-55, there's not any destination signs for Southaven. Well, you know, Southaven is the 3rd largest city in the state of Mississippi, and obviously Interstate 55 is one of the largest interstates in the United States, going from New Orleans all the way to Minnesota, right? Or, well, it goes north of Chicago. But anyway, either way, it's one of the major interstate systems in our country, and we didn't have Southaven signs. So we brought that to, after Alderman Kelly brought that to my attention, I had a discussion with MDOT about that, and they agreed. And so the good news tonight is that quickly MDOT has agreed to go back and change 5 signs as you're traveling northbound on I-55. When you pass north of Batesville, there's 5 signs between there and Southaven that there's going to be destination signs. The first one at north of Batesville will be, I think it's 41 miles. So they'll start there and just update the motorist as you approach the 3rd largest and the best city in Mississippi. So thank you for bringing that up, Alderman Kelly. I appreciate your help with that. There is one other addition to that. I don't know if anyone's noticed this, but I have noticed this. It's driven me crazy the whole time I've been mayor. But we've been busy with other things. The I-55 Church Road widening, I've been focused on that. So obviously when that happens, the signs are going to have to be changed anyway. But when you're going northbound on 55 at Church Road, there's a sign that says Southaven next 2 exits. But the sign is actually on right at Church. So you've already passed that exit when you get to that sign. Not to mention the fact that you've already missed, you've missed the first exit. So what MDOT has agreed to do is to move that sign back southward near Star Landing Road at the entrance of our city, and obviously change that to Southaven next 3 exits. So it makes so much sense. But anyway, I'm appreciative of MDOT for quickly agreeing to do both of those things. And again, thanks to Alderman Kelly for that suggestion. Next thing, recently at one of the board meetings, we authorized Alderman Brooks and our Parks Director, Wes Brown, to take a trip to Atlanta. They went to look at turf there. They toured the arena where the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where the Atlanta Falcons play and the SEC Championship is held. And they looked at turf. Like there's many modern versions of turf. It's come a long way since the original AstroTurf back in the 60s. But they were looking at a modern version of that, and the reason being that many of the youth parks, baseball, softball, have gone to artificial turf. That has quickly changed our competitive situation at Southaven. Snowden Grove Park has been the model for many parks throughout the southeastern part of the United States for 20 years. But recently, many parks have gone to turf. Well, this is the first year that we've really started to feel that financially. And when we started doing some research on it, what we've learned is that, many times now when there's a tournament, if there's a bad weather forecast, if there's rain in the forecast, that many teams, like on a Tuesday or Wednesday, are waiting to see the forecast, and then they're making a decision to not come to Snowden. They were going to another park that has turf. Obviously, if you have turf, your chances of not being rained out go up tremendously. So we realized that we've been put at somewhat of a competitive disadvantage. So that for that purpose, that discussion has heated up, and we've expedited that discussion. And so I have some information I want to share, but before I do that, Alderman Brooks, since you made the trip, would you just share some of the highlights of that and what's your overall perception of that product, that service is?
My overall perception is it's phenomenal. One of the biggest gripes we hear, I think, down in Oxford is the turf is hot. Well, they have a newer version of the turf that is about 7 to 10 degrees cooler. So it's also the factory. They're very hands-on. Everything is about quality control. So everything is made in-house. They go from station to station. I want to say every 5th roll, so they do a piece of turf. Every 5th roll, they keep, store, and they put away, and everything is. They can go back and scan any piece of turf. Let's say we had a problem with field number 5, and we, whatever piece of turf, they could go back. We can scan it. They can tell you exactly when it was made, who touched it. They run a first-class operation there. Obviously, you can look at the national stage. They do the Seahawks. They do the Falcons, obviously, and it's as well as the New Orleans Saints. We also toured some local high schools and local junior college, local colleges, quality turf is it's incredible. I'm really honestly speechless about how good a product it is. And for us, long term, I think it will definitely save us money. It's an investment. Obviously, it's going to cost money on the front end. But as the mayor said, we are at a competitive disadvantage. We've lost what, between 300,000 and 500,000 leases this past year. So something I'm all in favor. So.
Thank you, sir. Basically, I'll move into, in a minute, I'm going to go into, just a real rough proposal. But I will tell you that it's, after looking at what I've seen in our financials, our parks revenue, it is something that I would recommend to this board that we do that. And not just do it at Snowden, but also do it at Greenbrook. But I think it's time, if we do that, the maintenance costs that you save, in addition to the opportunity cost, that you're avoiding with the rainouts, I think it makes excellent financial sense to do both Greenbrook and Snowden. I'm going to move into that in just a minute, and we're going to have it on the overhead. But let me pass. I want y'all to have an idea. Okay, and then if we, let's back up for me if you would on the, I tell you what, I'm going to jump around. I'm sorry. I'm going to go to the pavement proposal for me, please. Okay. And board members, y'all will have that. I'm going to shift gears and talk about something else. Then I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back to the turf and just show you how this fits into this. I don't want to call it a recommendation at this point, but a suggestion is what I'll say. Y'all know that recently in the budget, we had a proposal from our Public Works Director, Bradley Wallace, that we felt like that we could do some of our street resurfacing in-house. As long as I've been here, we've always contracted that out. We've gotten a great product with that. What has not been satisfactory, in my opinion, is the time. Like when we have our streets resurfaced, it's between jobs for the contractor. Well, the thing that's bad about that is we may have a milling crew go out and mill some streets, and then depending on the schedule for them to come back, it could be 3-4 weeks. It's very inconvenient for the citizens. It's very frustrating. Not knowing when they're coming back. And again, I'm not here to knock the contractors. They've done a great job. The product has been fantastic. Our streets, we've made a lot of progress. But I just think that I think we can do better. And when I first started asking questions in 2013, why we pay outside contractors to do this, the answer I got back was always it's less expensive to pay someone to do it than you can do it yourself. Well, as I've wrestled with the streets in this city for 6 years, I've gained enough experience with it to tell you that we're never going to get the streets in the condition that I think Southaven should have unless we do something different. And unless we want to make a drastic change to the amount of money that we're allocating towards streets, I think we're losing ground. I mean, we've made a lot of progress, but there was so much development from in the early part of the early 2000s that we're behind. We had to come back with all the streets that we call bond zone, and then everybody started rebuilding again at one time. Everybody wanting their streets done immediately, and it's just been an enormous undertaking trying to get this done. But I believe it's one of two things. I believe we either need to bring street resurfacing in-house again, or we need to go back and instead of allocating $2 million in the budget, we need to bump that up to about $4 million. Because I'm just telling you from what I've seen, $2 million a year is not going to get it. I mean, we've got to either put more money into it or we got to do something different. Well, that ties into this proposal, and when we talked about the budget, I said that I wanted to have a little more time to come through some more details, talk to Dan Cordell, since he's helped tremendously with the, with Lehman Roberts, our street surface contractor, and I want to, kind of work through some details. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through this overhead, if you can see that. I know it's kind of small, but basically what the initial proposal was is that if we had equipment to start, we could go ahead and start doing some of the streets ourselves. Paving machine, obviously you got to have that. $160,000 for a paving machine, 2 dump trucks, which is used to haul the asphalt to the site and to feed the paving machine, $300,000 for that, and then a roller, $90,000. So you have $550,000 upfront equipment. For us to do that, the suggestion would be that we pay for that up front and to go ahead and get started. Obviously, the next challenge would be labor, trying to find qualified people that have done this before. This would not be someone that's working for us now. These would be people that have experience in paving streets, and so we would have to go and hire one operator who would be the driver of the paving machine, who would be the on-site supervisor. Then you would have to have obviously two drivers to drive the trucks, and then 3 crewmen, which would be actually doing the work there paving the street. So there's your total labor cost of $275,000. Then obviously if you have the equipment, it's going to take money to operate the equipment. I've got that broken down with fuel, maintenance, and the insurance for the additional equipment, which totals in this first column is assuming that you just did $2 million worth of work, which is in our current budget year. So that total for the operation is $83,000. Then you got materials. You obviously have to buy the asphalt. You have to buy the patching materials to patch the bad spots before you do the paving. So your materials on a $2 million worth of work is estimated at $1.2 million. Occasionally, you would have to rent trucks. Depending on the outside temperature, the asphalt has to be a certain temperature, so time is an issue. You have to keep the paving machine rolling. So there may be times when you have to rent some additional trucks to make sure you got the asphalt there in a timely way. Milling, for those in the audience that don't understand this, milling is when you have a curb and gutter street. Before you put new asphalt on it, you have to mill the edges so the asphalt matches up evenly with the curb. And so instead of buying our own milling machine, we believe it would still be less expensive to pay someone to do that. And we believe the milling cost on a $2 million worth of work is $200,000 a year. So basically that totals, your total recurring cost is $1,777,000, whereas now we'd be paying $2 million for that. So you can see in year one, that would provide a savings of $222,000. It's important to note that since we've never done this before, that there are some unknowns with it. One of the main things that, there's 2 ways to look at this. You would need more, you're going to need some more laborers that would move. We have currently 4 full-time personnel now that are on our street crews that are doing potholes and stuff now. On many streets, we would need to move them with this additional crew to give us enough manpower to move at the right rate of speed. That is true that it would be removing them from other jobs that they're doing now. What I believe and what our Public Works Director and Street Superintendent believes is that with the additional time, like if we had our own people doing this, instead of paving streets in 3 months, which is about what we're doing, 300 hours is about the amount of time that our current contractor is paving all of our streets in our budget. They knock that out quickly. I mean, you're talking about really about 2 months worth of work. If we had our own people, we could spread that. Instead of 2 months, they could be working for at least 9 months. So you're going to have some cold weather months where they're not going to be able to work. The asphalt plants do shut down some around Christmas, Thanksgiving. But still, we believe that it's going to give many more months where they could be working. So instead of, like if someone calls you, a citizen says, hey, when is my street getting done? And you say, well, we finished the list this year, which is true. We normally finish the list in May, maybe sometimes June. So we're not going to start paving again until the next year. So if they bring that request to you, basically what you're telling them is that we're done this year. And so you're going to have to wait until probably March of the following year. Well, if we have our own people, we're not shutting down. I mean, so it gives us a lot more flexibility on what street we do, when we do it, and ultimately we believe we can pave more streets. But I brought that concern out because Dan Cordell mentioned that, and I agree with him. We are going to be pulling some people off of work that they're doing now, but what I believe is that that can be absorbed over the course of the year. Because, so right now, like on, if it's September 3rd, and we have a street that we want to pave today, if those four were going to be doing pothole repairs, they can go pave the street, and then if there's the next day, we'll just adjust the schedule where they do the potholes. So we believe that we can coordinate that over a 9-month period to where we can do both. And then, so $222,000, that's not a whole lot to get excited about, but if you'll look over to the far two right columns, if you have the same labor cost that's working 9 months a year instead of paying someone to work 2 months a year, you got this, your labor cost stays the same. Obviously, your operational costs are going to go up, more fuel, more maintenance. Insurance costs will stay the same. But if you look at those same numbers and just adjust the materials upward, adjust all the numbers upward, if you go to $3 million worth of work, that equates to a $755,000 savings. And if you go to $4 million, which is like I said earlier, I believe that's realistically, that's the number of streets or dollar amount of streets we should be doing. That saves you over $1 million a year. Obviously, we've never done this before. It's not going to be exact. If we do that, we're going to run into some things that we didn't expect. But still, I believe we got to do something different. And I believe that, giving us the flexibility to pave streets throughout the year rather than being at someone else's mercy, I think this is a good move. And I'm not asking for board action tonight. Just wanted y'all to, chew on that for a little bit, and then we'll need to make a decision, within the next, 60, 90 days, But bottom line, again, just to summarize this discussion, I don't think we're getting there. We're not getting there doing what we're doing. It's time to do something else. I believe we can do it. I believe we can bring it in-house and pave streets as good as anyone else. The key would be finding the personnel. So if we get to go ahead to move forward with this, I would recommend that we go ahead and post the jobs and hire the personnel. We know that the equipment is local. We do not have to order that. It is on site. We can buy the equipment and we can be in business before March of 2020.
Mayor, what's the average lifespan of the equipment?
I believe it's 15 to 20 years. Dan Bradley, and I asked that question. I forgot what you told me, but I know it's not 3 or 5 year deal. This is equipment 15 years, and that is at ballpark. Bradley?
That's yes, or at least I'd say 10 to 15.
Yeah. Obviously, you're going to have some maintenance on it. Other than what's in there is the stuff that is going to come with it. Like when you're operating this equipment, you're going to have oil and grease costs that are, even if the equipment is working perfectly, you're still going to have that cost. But we do have shop personnel that can work on equipment as well for things that have to be repaired.
If we're saving $1 million a year, it makes sense to replace that equipment anyway if it's that bad. So.
Well, and that's when I put that on there. I mean, if your economies of scale are going to be so much better if you're paving more than 2. So I'm just showing you, like, if you just took it, apples for apples with our budget 2020, we believe we can get it done, basically for a little bit less. I mean, even if we run into some unknowns, it's very realistic to believe that you can do it for the same cost that you're paying someone else. Again, when you bring it back in-house, you have more quality control. You're holding your own employees accountable for the work. I can assure you they don't want to go back out on that same street and do it again, so they're going to do it right. But yeah, when you start getting into larger volumes of streets, your economies of scale are larger. So you're getting into, more savings there, which enables you to pave more streets.
I saw a picture of that roller when we talked about this. What kind of paving machine do we have? What size is it in? What size are we using now, or Lehman Roberts using now? And what does this compare to that?
This would be a large one. I can't speak to that. I don't know that. I mean, Bradley, do you have any?
Compared
Is
to
it paving? I'm assuming it'd be that we'd make sure it's the same thing. I mean, we're not going to, obviously, we want to.
It just seems like not a lot of money for one of
Yeah.
the paving machines, but I don't know anything about paving machines.
Well, Robert Booth did price the equipment. Robert Booth has experience in asphalt and, yeah.
Are you asking, is it comparable to what?
Yes.
Lehman Roberts, or, yes, sir, is it comparable to what they're using for larger scale paving?
Okay.
Yes, sir, the roller and the paper, yes, sir.
And like I told Bradley, I mean, we wouldn't jump into this thing just to experiment with it. I mean, if we're going to spend that much money in equipment, we're going to pay some streets. So we're not going to put ourselves at any disadvantage. We're going to get the same equipment that they have. Okay, before I move on, is there any other, like I said, not asking for board action, just reporting back to you with information that I've gathered. And then, within the next few months, we'll bring this back up to make a decision. Until then, I have been working on the street list for 2020. We'll go ahead and start Lehman Roberts on the 2020 list for September and October. So there'll be some streets that we can go ahead and assign them, so we're not losing any time, while we're thinking about this. But anybody else got any questions or discussion about it? Okay, I'll move on. And next thing I want to go into is just, since we were talking about turf, talking about paving, I want to just review and this is a suggestion, okay? Bob, please don't put this in the paper. This is not, don't put it on Facebook. This is just, I'm just involving the public in a discussion, okay? So please, don't wear out your welcome. But basically, this is just a general suggestion on what we can do, just for the board to be thinking about. I've reported to the board that we have an excess surplus. And what I mean by that is our board voted on a policy several years ago that we would be financially stable and always maintain at least 12% of our general fund in reserves. So we do that. So if you take 12% of your general fund now, that equates to $5,894,040. So we want to always keep at least 12% in our reserves. When we say unassigned fund balance, that's, what slang would be rainy day fund or reserves. So right now, our unassigned fund balance is $11,890,418. So we're cash heavy. We have cash. And so what this Bob, this suggestion, very rough suggestion, is what we could do. Like, we obviously need to use the money for the taxpayers' benefit. We don't need excess surplus just sitting there doing nothing. So you could take that $11,890,000. If you go down to the next paragraph, capital improvements with cash, that's things that we can use this for with cash. So we've already talked about State Line Road resurfacing. We believe that's going to cost us about $1.7 million. The City Hall renovation project is about $2 million. And then we have the park maintenance shop that's going now as well. That's $1.2 million. Then if you add the paving equipment that I just talked about, you could do all those things with cash, and then you still have excess surplus. So you still have $6,440,418 in your reserves, which is $546,378 above that 12% threshold. So that's with doing all those things in cash. All right, then when you start talking about capital improvements, like we start talking about the turf infields at Snow and Grove and Greenbrook, and some other things, this is what you could do with a bond. In 2021 and 22, The city has a large amount of debt that's going to be coming off. You're going to have your town center TIF debt, which was the original mall on Airways. That will be paid for in 2021. And so what you see in red is not the total amount, that's not the face amount of debt, that's the amount of your payments or your debt service. So in 2021, the town center TIF comes off, which frees up $800,000 a year in debt payments. Then you have other general debt, GO debt that comes off, $527,500. And then in 2022, you have $1.3 million in debt service that will be rolling off. So that's freeing up $2.6 million in debt service for 21 and 22. So back to the proposal, if you did a piece of that and then issued a new GO bond, which we know we're going to have to do that anyway for fire station number 5. Fire station number 5 will be under construction in 2020. So we're going to issue GO debt. The rates, interest rates are extremely low. They're 2.75% on anything 10 million and less, a little bit higher if you go above 10. But this just shows a list of a proposal, what you could do. These are very general numbers. We're still crunching the numbers on turf. We estimated 6 million. That could come down. We expect that will come down. Fire station number 5 at 4 million. We've talked about not losing our grip on competition at Greenbrick and Snowden. Black vinyl fencing is what all the other newer parks have. That's what you have in Tupelo, you have in Oxford, you have in Jackson, Tennessee. That's what they're all going to. The fences at Snowden are 20 years old. And that's the thing is we know Snowden has been a huge asset for us. So it is important that we keep the park nice and we don't lose our grip or our competitive advantage. The black vinyl fencing dresses it up. It looks awesome. All the new parks have that. The roofs at Snowden need to be painted. If you've been over there, they're 20-year-old roofs. They're all different color red. So we need to paint those. That could be something that is paid for with cash. I'll remind you that the 385 State Line building is up for sale. We have contract offers on that. That amount of money is not in this proposal. So if you do that, you're adding, another 1.6 to 1.8 million in excess surplus. So we could pull the roofs out of the bond and go that way with that. Tennis is blowing and going. So all the people that criticize the expenditure of tennis just 2 years ago, the tennis operation is just, like I said, is blowing and going. We have room to build 4 more courts. The area in front of the park maintenance shop on Pine Tar Alley or Freeman Lane going back towards the park, there's room for 4 more courts. You could do 4 more courts for about $900,000. We got a few things that we need to do at the police and fire training centers. We're still waiting on exact numbers on that, but I did account for a little bit of money there. But basically, and this is just assuming you went large, if you did 13 million in bond, your debt service is 853,000. And that's a 20-year bond. So you're rolling off 2.6 million and you'd be adding 853,000. So you'd be doing all those things and still, with a still drastic reduction in debt service. And then again, like I said about the unassigned fund balance, the additional proceeds would go into that, which is still going to keep you cash heavy in doing all these things. No board action asked for. Just wanted to update everyone, give you some ideas on possibilities. 21, 22 offer enormous options as far as available debt service. Any discussion about any of that? Okay, hearing none, we'll continue talking about that. We'll move on. The next thing, as a follow-up to our last discussion about streetlights. Again, this was the issue that don't know how we got here, don't know why there's no consistent plan among cities. Cities do it differently. But basically the concern came up recently. Some of our developers were asked by Entergy to set up an account with them and pay for the streetlights until the streets are handed over to or dedicated to the city. The city doesn't take the streets until most of the developments are at least 80% complete. But there's been a request for the city to take the street lights between now and then. We tossed that around, so I'm just going to open that back up for discussion. If anybody has any follow-up comments or opinions about whether or not the city should go ahead and take the street lights, or whether we should wait until we take the streets and do the lights in the streets at the same time. Just real quickly, the benefits to the city taking it now, when there's a development that's going on, you have streets that have to be put in advance. So until homes are built, you have vacant streets, which, there's a lot of mischief that goes on. So it's to the city's benefit to have the streets lit even before the homes are built there. But anyway, just talk to me a little bit.
So just my personal opinion is we're not having trouble selling houses in Southaven right now. I think we should wait until the roads are finished, don't take on extra debt. I don't know how crime goes in a new neighborhood, but I would imagine it's lower than average. New people moving in. That's just my opinion.
But quick question, I mean, we're currently taking the lights now, right?
Entergy has changed some things where Entergy is, we have taken the lights, but where it really becomes an issue is like when you get into the ones where you're putting decorative fixtures in, Entergy has quoted high prices for that. I mean, that's what they say their cost is. So that's where it becomes an issue. If you're just putting your standard lights in, no big deal. But if you start going to a more decorative look, which we've tried to do over the last 3 years, to make the subdivisions nicer, add the decorative poles, you do get a significant difference in price. You're passing that on, or the builder is assuming that. Let's say if you have one that's got a subdivision that's taken 3 or 4 years, we're not just talking about a few months, we're talking about years. That the developer is paying the cost of the lighting.
Well, I would just assume that the developer, if they're putting a nice neighborhood, that they're putting in the fancy light fixtures. I mean, I don't have a problem with us taking over paying for the electricity, but I would assume a fancy light fixture that the developers were paying for.
Well, actually, Entergy puts the fixtures in.
But could they not charge the developer just for the light pole, and then we have the account to pay for the electricity?
Well, they've not. Again, that's been complicated with Entergy. They rolled it all in together.
They put the power line down, though, Energy does, and they pay for it, the builder pays for that. The bill pay for it.
Yeah.
They put the water in, and the builder pays for that. The builder has that. I mean, that's just. Cost of doing business. Yeah. I don't know the answer to this.
Whitney, did they, I know we just had a handful of discussions with Entergy, but
Just a few.
With that, what Alderman Payne's talking about is could the city take the power bill and then the fixtures be installed separately?
The way that they have explained to us is it's a turnkey installation. Basically, you sign the deal before they install, before they turn on the lights. We have not approached them with trying to itemize out that bill. But the response we were getting from the developers and from Yvonne is before we put them in, somebody has to sign this contract with us. They're the ones who pay for the whole thing, and that it's a perpetual bill with the globe, the arms, the pole, and the service. It is billed all inclusive every single time, so they don't separate it out. We can ask them. They have definitely not offered that, and that's not something we've looked into. I don't know that they would do it simply because they tend to just bill us for everything forever, and it's just an all-inclusive bill.
Yeah, in the discussions we've had, it's, they roll it up together.
Hey, I'm over you, that's just in case.
Okay.
I'm able to do it without it, sound like.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you the question.
I wanted to answer the question, but they get me in trouble later.
Then there were 4.
Good, now let's vote. I'm I get to vote for once in my career.
I guess what I'm thinking, I kind of understand what Joel's saying. But if I'm a developer and I know that the city is going to pay for whatever light fixtures I order,
I'm getting the most
Well, it has to
expensive.
be
you see what I'm saying? I mean,
Well, it has to be approved.
solid gold fixtures, baby.
Yeah, no, and that has to be approved. I mean, the fixture would be approved by the city.
Right.
And we're not talking about Washington DC streets or these elaborate ornate poles. We're just talking about a decent looking decorative light pole. But, it's just, I just wanted to hear from, Alderman Gallagher has some thoughts on it. What many developers would tell you is that, are we selling homes and building homes? Yeah, but they'll tell you that it's a significant, they don't like it.
Well, we can change it later, but
Well, that's what I'm saying. We need to decide, because this decision is, I got to give some people an answer.
Sure.
So, like I said, when we talk about it, it doesn't mean that we talk about it for 3 years. It means that we talk about it over a matter of 2 or 3 meetings and make a decision.
we talked about the county, how the county does it.
Well, the county's really not the same. The county is, you're not getting into as many, we're going to be much more dense with residential developments than the county would be, so.
And per your request, Alderman Payne, I went and talked to a bunch of cities to see kind of how everybody did it. And just a quick summary, Tupelo inspects the installation of the lines, and they take them immediately once the inspection is passed. They said any request for more decorative lights beyond their specs, and we have a decorative acorn light spec for us, and we have the regular shoebox light spec, but anything beyond that, then the cost goes to the HOA, and the city covers the bulbs of the service. Ocean Springs is the same thing. The only thing they do a little different is they do a preliminary and final plat for the board, so when the final plat's approved, the curb and gutter and the bottom layer of asphalt's already in, they take the lights at that point. Oxford is the exception, and as you know, Oxford's blowing and going, and they take the street lights when they accept the road. And they're a lot like us, 60 to 80% built out. They'll take the street lights when they take the road. DeSoto County, as you've just noted, they don't own a street light. Hernando takes them immediately. Madison accepts them immediately, but only after inspection of the conduit, the electrical lines, installation. Then when Public Works goes out to inspect the road for a final lift of asphalt, if there is a damaged street light out there, then they require the developer to cover the cost of repairing and replacing that street light. And then Olive Branch does the same as us. They did say that they're looking into some type of what they call a plant fee, that they want to do a unit cost per light to give to the developers up front. But as of right now, they do exactly what we do, which is take them immediately.
I'd be okay with taking it up front if we charge the developer.
I think the problem they're running into, and I'll let Nick, development fees aren't quite, legal in Mississippi, so they're trying to find a way that they don't step on, that type of issue, but do it like a unit per cost. They've had problems with Entergy, imagine this. They've had problems with Entergy getting that itemized cost on how much each pole would cost them to install, so they can then take that as a city and say, okay, it's X amount of dollars for Entergy to put this in, so we're going to initiate that cost up front to developers to come back to us so we can basically recoup that cost. And that's what they're looking into now. I told them we're all kind of keeping in touch. Apparently this is a big discussion through all the cities in Mississippi, so nobody was surprised when I called them about it. But that's essentially what everybody's doing right now. Like I said, the only two I could find are really kind of out of the norm of us right now is Oxford and DeSoto County.
Any thoughts, any discussion?
Well, honestly, I think a developer should pay whatever the difference is on decorative fixtures. My fear would be is that it would cause more developers not to use decorative fixtures. But at the same time, I think it only benefits them and their development if they do. So, maybe it would.
Well, and my fear is what you said. My fear is if you do that then they say, okay, I'm just going to put the cheapest thing up. And I will tell you this, I'm not afraid to say this in public or on camera. We have enough cheap subdivisions in Southaven. We have plenty of low-cost housing in Southaven. We don't need to decrease our residential areas any more than they already are. And so that would be my fear is if you pass that or force the developer to take all the costs, and then they just put the cheap fixtures in. Little things like that make a difference. I mean, if you travel, you go into the nicer areas, you're going to see decorative light pole. That's one of the things that dresses up a subdivision or a street more than anything is the decorative fixtures. So that's my fear. Is I don't want us to, whatever decision that we make, I don't want us to go and just say, well, we're not going to pay it, you know, whatever you take there, and then they go back and just put the cheapest thing in. Because it's not just benefiting them, it's benefiting us too, you know, because then we're left with, you know, with lesser valued subdivisions. Housing.
You might have been asking this, Alderman Payne, but is there a way for us to somehow split the difference? Like say, if they pay for the base model and then we pay the difference in the upgraded model, I'd be comfortable with doing some sort of split that way. That way it's beneficial for them and we're not taking on the entirety of the cost of it.
That's a good, yeah, I mean, that's a good suggestion there. And I didn't know, I mean, basically what we've been told is that we were taking it already. We were taking in the past, we were taking the lights.
Yeah, apparently we've been taking them up front the whole time. I mean, that's the best thing Bradley and I could find out. It's come through Public Works for years, well before Bradley's time. And we've been taking them just immediately once the lines get installed. Someone, be it the developer or the city, initiates a contact with Entergy, tells them to install the poles, and the first bill comes to us and it continues to come to us.
Have we at least had inspections on those?
You'll have to ask Bradley. I don't know how the process works when the installation and stuff goes in.
And one thing that we started doing is that we started, you know, encouraging the decorative poles in the new developments, and which makes a big difference. But then that's what got us here. We started doing that, then developers started coming to us and saying, well, Entergy is charging us much more to put the decorative pole than what we've done in the past, so that's why it's more of an issue. I think the cost of the lighting was not as big a deal, you know, the old way, but now when you add the decorative pole, it's you know, it adds up with some developments.
Well, like Alderman Kelly's idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why we, you know, can't insist that we use the decorative lighting and just have the developer pay the difference of what the regular pole would be versus the decorative one.
And then you get into how does Entergy account for that? Because Entergy wraps it up all into one package, like they charge you.
We've made a whole package.
And I would also say they're gonna continue, so it doesn't stop once the poles are paid off. The bill is forever. So, I mean, we'd have to come up with a lump sum for them to pay us, because even if they pay the difference, once it's paid off on our bill, Entergy was still gonna be charging us for that forever and ever more.
So it'd just be a temporary, even if you split it, it would
Right.
just be temporarily. But still, I mean, it's still a good idea.
So it's still something, definitely.
Is it like Comcast where you rent the modem?
I'm not gonna comment on Comcast when I talk.
Well, we have another meeting with Entergy, and I'm going to wait until after that meeting to share some other details. But I've questioned a lot of that already, multiple times. It doesn't make sense to me why you charge, you know, indefinitely on upfront costs, but they do.
I mean, I'd rather it be just a flat fee, this is what it costs, let's get that paid, and then give us the monthly normal billing cycle of what the electricity costs. I mean, am I understanding that right? They're charging you for that light for the
Cost of that light forever and ever more, not just the
duration?
service.
So we're paying for it.
That sounds like a
multiple
scam.
times.
Yes, I mean, it will, that's to the mayor's point. I mean, he's been in contact with the Public Service Commission trying to figure out how this is even possible, and I think the investigation's going through, you know, his office. But yeah, I mean, I can't answer that. It's just a forever and ever and ever bill.
Well, I'll go ahead and say I don't agree with that. It doesn't make any sense, but I have brought that to the Public Service Commission's attention, and Entergy says that they have the legal right to do that, so.
Can and should are different.
I agree with you.
Now, we are looking at the possibility, and that's something that Bradley and we're getting the numbers crunched to get to the mayor before Entergy, but I mean, what you see down Northwest Drive, Entergy didn't install those. We purchased those lights ourselves. And once we install them, then all they can charge us for is the service. You
I
know,
think that's
the
kind of what Alderman Payne is asking. If we did all that up front, then we would just be paying for the cost of the power.
Right.
The bad thing about that is you're talking about significant amounts of money to do boring and put the fixtures in and all that. But Entergy's always
Over the long haul,
said,
it would save us money.
It would.
what'd you say?
Over the long haul, it would save us money.
Certainly, yeah, but you're talking about, I mean,
significant.
You might want to look at the numbers. It's not inexpensive, because you've got boring costs to do, lay the power lines, underneath roadways and that kind of thing, so.
But they're gonna run the lines, right? I mean,
Well, no, we do the boring, which is, the expense comes in with installing the structure, installing the pole and the
Right.
boring and the laying the conduit and all that. So if we do what you're talking about, we would be paying the cost to do all that. And then we would just be renting the power, just the electricity from them.
They would install the lines, and we had an example last year, the mayor and I looked at possibly lighting up Central Park right down by the schools. So you had that stint, I believe it was 13 poles. They would do everything, we would purchase the poles, Soto Electric was gonna install them, do the boring. All they were gonna do is provide the lines, and that was in excess of about $125,000 just to get those 13 poles installed down Central Parkway at our cost. So, I mean, it's pretty pricey.
It's about $10,000 a pole, roughly.
Very cool.
Okay, we'll keep working on it. Obviously, we're not, getting to a solution tonight, but we'll keep working on that, and I'll report back to y'all, and reach out to me. And Sherry, if you have any other thoughts after the meeting, please reach out, individually and share that with me too.
Alderman Wheeler can come back.
Going back.
He left.
He's acting like he's not listening.
come on.
Okay, and that's all I have. We'll move on from Mayor's report. Next on the agenda is our citizens' agenda. We did not have anyone that signed up in advance, but we welcome anyone in the audience who would like to speak. If you would like to speak, please come forward. Anyone want to speak on the citizens' agenda? It looks like no one wants to speak tonight, so we'll move on. Next on the agenda is our personnel docket.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the personnel docket as presented on the state.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Kelly. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda is our city attorney's legal update.
So I have two quick items. First item is authorization for the mayor to sign an easement with the Corps of Engineers to allow for the habitat survey in support of flood risk management. It's a study the Corps is doing for flooding in DeSoto County, and this will allow them to have temporary easement to review certain parts of city property for that purpose.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Kelly, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
That motion carries.
And then next item, at the last meeting, we approved the resolution for Medline. At this point, we're in the process of working on them with the agreement for the DIF grant. Just upon completion and satisfactory language for MDA, authorize the mayor to sign that agreement as well.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Wheeler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda is our utility bill adjustment docket.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the utility bill adjustment docket as presented on the state.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
That motion carries. Next on the agenda are claims dockets.
Mr. Mayor, I move, we got two dockets. Mr. Mayor, I move we approve docket number 1 in the amount of $1,060,460.32, including demand checks.
Second.
On docket 1, we have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve docket number 2 in the amount of $15,552.34.
Second.
On docket 2, we have a motion by Alderman Payne, second by Alderman Brooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Alderman Brooks?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Yes.
Alderman Gallagher?
Yes.
Alderman Wheeler?
Yes.
That motion carries. All right, next on the agenda is to determine the need for executive session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Wheeler. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries. The need this evening is litigation and claims against the city's police department and public works department, economic development with potential business locating to the city of Southaven. Is there a motion to declare executive session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Gallagher, second by Alderman Kelly. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries. The mayor and board will now enter executive session.